report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Officials reportedly suggest the Bondo Beach attackers visited the southern island of Mindanao in the Philippines earlier and stayed there briefly for a month. One of the shooters also visited a gun store during their stay. Thousands of long-awaited Epstein files have been released as U.S. Justice Department published first batch of documents featuring Bill Clinton, Michael Jackson. Files show little mention of Trump. To the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, U.S. strikes in Syria have killed at least 5 Daesh members. This comes as Washington retaliated for a December 13th attack in Palmyra that has killed two U.S. soldiers and 1 U.S. civilian. Jordan has confirmed that its forces took part in U.S.-Syria strikes. The U.S. Central Command has reported that fighter jets, helicopters and artillery struck more than 70 targets at multiple locations across central Syria. U.S. government says 7 arrested over lynching of 27-year-old Hindu man in Bangladesh's Mymensingh over blasphemy allegations. UNIS said arrests followed the coordinated action by RIB units. Benin has placed former defense minister and prominent opposition political candidate Hassan Nai in pre-trial detention. This comes as part of an investigation into the country's failed coup attempt. Italian police have arrested 384 people and has seized 1.4 tons of drugs in a large-scale operation against drug trafficking. In addition to the arrests, officers had put under investigation 655 individuals, including 39 minors, and confiscated 35 kilograms of cocaine and more than 40 firearms. Documents shows Nexperia's China unit switches to local firms for wafer supplies. This is after the Dutch firm stopped supplying raw materials after a corporate dispute. Now for this hour, we start with U.S. The U.S. Justice Department has released thousands of heavily redacted documents linked to late financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The newly released files make scant reference to U.S. President Donald Trump, but they extensively feature Democratic former President Bill Clinton. The partial release follows a law passed by Congress in November forcing disclosure of Epstein-related material despite months of resistance from the Trump administration. Many of the documents are almost entirely blacked out, with some running more than 100 pages of censored text. The Justice Department admits it is still reviewing hundreds of thousands of additional pages. While Trump's name does not appear in the latest batch, earlier disclosures showed his name listed on flight manifests for Jeffrey Epstein's private jet. Those records indicated passengers who traveled on Epstein's aircraft, often referred to as the Lolita Express. Trump has denied any wrongdoing, and the White House earlier said that Trump severed his ties with Epstein years before his first conviction in 2008. Lawmakers from both parties are now criticizing the Justice Department, saying the release falls short of the law's transparency requirements. Now for this discussion, we welcome Ms. Alison Mutler. She's a former AP Bureau Chief of Romania, joins us live from Bucharest. Thank you very much, Ms. Alison, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, it seems highly fishy, this latest revelation. Do you know anything significant about this latest revelations?
Well, I think there's two things. First of all, the timing, late on a Friday evening. So that gives everybody, including journalists and commentators, the whole weekend to discuss it. And whose name features heavily is former US President Bill Clinton, who is an enemy to Trump. So this serves Trump. His name, I think, does appear once, but as you said, I think very scant reference to him. And there are references to, I think, there's pictures of Mick Jagger and of Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison for grooming minors, and Michael Jackson. So really, politically, this hurts the Democrats. This hurts Bill Clinton, who was considered one of the Democrats' best presidents. And there is criticism that obviously it's a very complicated task redacting all the names. Redacting means like blacking out all the names and the faces in the pictures. And there are hundreds of thousands of pages. But this is a first tranche. It's a first selection of photos and text. But obviously, Trump, after having dragged his feet, has now allowed that, also the law was passed by Congress, this has been released, and it looks bad for his enemies, political enemies. So that suits Trump. We'll see what other documents are released, but Trump, as Clinton, have denied associating with Jeffrey Epstein once they knew of his wrongdoing.
Yes, indeed, it is. It seems very well calculated indeed. And do you think, does this heavy redaction of Epstein-related documents undermine the intent of Congress's transparency law?
Yes, it does rather, because they've released, but some and a bit, and they seem sort of politically calculated. So it does. We'll have to see what they do next. But at the moment, I saw that Trump's spokeswoman, I think, was immediately sort of rubbing her hands, gloating that Bill Clinton, lots of pictures of him came out with him in a hot tub and next to women whose faces were redacted. So that there was gloating there. But there's also questions about, okay, we're allowing this tranche to be released, but how fair is it? How transparent is it? And at the moment, it's not that transparent, which is why we're waiting to see what happens further down the line. But I'm unsure whether we will see full transparency.
And looking at how the revelations are being made step by step, it makes me feel like I'm waiting for an episode of my favorite soap opera or something. Why is this tactic being used for this particular case?
I think there's been so much speculation about this disgraced, now dead. He committed suicide in prison in 2019, and there were obviously questions asked about that, whether he actually did commit suicide. But the official version is he did. And he was this New York disgraced financier, but he had these very powerful associates, ranging from Michael Jackson to former prime ministers to Mick Jagger to Donald Trump. To Bill Clinton and many others whose names aren't necessarily in the public space all the time, but they are important people. And as you say, you see these very powerful people in hot tubs or with their arms around or young women, or the case of the former Prince Andrew lying across a lap of a few women. People like to see. It is like, as you said, it's rather like a soap opera to see how the powerful actually behave in their time off, and how they all associate with each other. Out front, they're sort of perhaps they're enemies or they're not friends, and then behind the scenes, they're all partying together. And there may have been, sex trafficking going on, underage, and there was. And so this does look very bad, and I think people want to see who was involved. And although these pictures, there's stressed, there's no allegation of wrongdoing here.
100%. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to thank Ms. Alison Mutler for joining us today and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. Palestinians held funerals in Gaza for 5 people killed in what local officials say was an Israeli strike on a school sheltering displaced families. Health and Emergency Services say most of the dead were children and that bodies were recovered only after UN coordination with Israel. The Israeli military says its troops fired at what it called suspicious individuals and is reviewing reports of casualties. Hamas has called the attack a violation of the ceasefire once again. Palestinian officials say 400 people have been killed since the truce began, while Israel says 3 of its soldiers have died. Let's listen into what the relatives have shared.
بقينا قاعدين في قلب المدرسة، تمام، منطقة آمنة، ما درينا إلا هالصواريخ وهالقذائف بتسقط علينا. طب وضرب في الناس المدنيين الأبرياء، مجزرة جديدة. ناس أبرياء مدنيين، أطفال، نساء، كبار، صغار، كلهم 3 سنين 5 سنين، يعني لا لهم دخل لا في تنظيم.
صار الانفجار واحنا في الحفل الزفاف قاعدين، فللاسف الشديد صرنا نلم اشلاء اطفال، شيوخ، رضع، نساء، شباب. للاسف الشديد رننا على طواقم الدفاع المدني، طواقم الاسعاف، للاسف الشديد ما قدروش يعدوا من الجيش الدفاع.
Palestinians held funerals in Gaza for 5 people who were killed in what local officials say was an Israeli strike on a school sheltering displaced families. Health and Emergency Services say most of the dead were children and that bodies were recovered only after UN coordination with Israel. The Israeli military says its troops fired at what it called suspicious individuals and is reviewing reports of casualties. Hamas has called the attack a violation of ceasefire. Palestinian officials say 400 people have been killed since the truce began, while Israel says 3 of its soldiers have passed away. The Israeli military says its troops fired at what it called suspicious individuals and is reviewing reports of casualties. Hamas has called the attack a violation of ceasefire once again. Palestinians have held funerals in Gaza for 5 people who were killed in what local officials say was an Israeli strike on a school sheltering displaced families. Health and Emergency Services say most of the dead were children and that bodies were recovered only after UN coordination with Israel. The Israeli military says its troops fired at what it called suspicious individuals and is reviewing reports of casualties, while Hamas has called the attack a violation of the ceasefire once again. Palestinian officials say 400 people have been killed since the truce began, while Israel says 3 of its soldiers have died. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Sudakarji. He's an international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at Israel and Hamas and Gaza situation right now, Israeli military has said that its troops fired at what it called suspicious individual. However, Palestinians have said that most of the people who have passed away were children, and Israeli strike was on a school sheltering displaced families. What do you think when Israeli military says suspicious individuals? What do you think they are? What is their kind of threshold in filtering out suspicious individuals, as we know that some of them or most of these victims were children?
Asoma, good evening. Thank you for getting me for your show.
Thank you.
As regards to the question which you have raised, I would say one must understand the cyclic trigger or violation of truce. So once a truce or ceasefire was decided, since then it has been violated several times, and each time had a kind of a casus belli, in the sense some kind of a trigger was existing. In the instant case, the trigger has been more than one. I think it is 3 Israeli soldiers have been claimed to have been killed by the Hamas. If that was the trigger, Israelis felt justified in carrying out a kind of a mayhem or killing, whether suspicious or unsuspicious, anybody in the proximity, simply to retaliate and give a message. Now this is not on. You see, once a ceasefire has been established, I think both the sides, the guns must freeze, the weapons must freeze. There should be no cross-firing. This is what has to be ensured by a neutral force. Unfortunately, the neutral force or the stabilizing force is just to mobilize and reach Gaza. where we have been hearing that countries like Pakistan would be sending the troops. Pakistan, they themselves have no discipline, no control over the soldiers, no control over any other resources in the country. What are they going to do in Gaza? Because Gaza is extra sensitive. We need to have neutral elements under UN flag operating duly empowered with the mandate as per the UN Charter. And only then things will start looking up, and they have to be neutral and kind of a non-parochial, without any leanings towards parochial affiliation. So therefore, in the instant case, I think Israelis have gone wrong. You cannot justify killing of civilian children particularly. This is my personal take. I do not encourage terrorism, but at the same time, I am not on the side of killing of innocent people, innocent children. So that is my take at the moment. Back to you, Asuma.
Yes, thank you for sharing that in-depth analysis. And Major General, now what next, as talks of second phase continues, and also including the control force that's been suggested that Pakistan could be part of it, and also why Pakistan?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question you have asked. Why Pakistan? Pakistan is an arch rival of Israel. Everyone knows about it. And they have got internal troubles shooting up within the country itself. You have Labaka group, where they lost around, I think, 126 odd people just about a month and a half back. And somehow they have been calmed down. They were actually revolting against Pakistan, mellowing down before the United States and going in for a peace deal with Israel, because they're on the side of the Palestinians, as per my understanding and the research. And suddenly they find that Pakistan is going onto the lap of or embrace of Israel. And there are loud talks going on about Abraham Accord, where Pakistan also would be signing along with Saudi Arabia and Israel. So these are the kind of speculations, and I totally acknowledge your apprehension stated in the question. Why Pakistan? But Pakistan has been detailed by Donald Trump, I think, to probe and test their capability. The testing of capability or sword has been shown with a double edge. If Munir says no to Donald Trump, then he is going down the drain. So therefore, he cannot say no to Donald Trump. And if he says yes, within the country, he is going to be had. Perhaps he is actually preparing Munir from frying pan to the fire. Most probably, he is creating a situation wherein the military leader, the almighty leader, I think he is the strongest and the supreme leader of armed forces of any country in the world today, because of Constitution Amendment 27. He is being subjected to a kind of a trial by Donald Trump. One really doesn't know. He is also seeking a meeting of Donald Trump. I think it must have already fructified, or it's about to fructify soon. So therefore, I do agree with your question. Pakistan is not a neutral state. Why should Pakistan be sent? They are in favor of Hamas. They are in favor of Palestine. So seeing the past precedents, I don't think it will stand to testimony of neutrality when you detail a country to provide armed forces. And more than that, 25,000 going to a place like Gaza, it has to be on a rotational basis. The country is having problems along the western border, Duran line. They have problems within the country itself. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is witnessing troubles from the Tehrik Taliban Pakistan. They have problems from Balochistan. They have problems from Pakistan occupied Jammu Kashmir. In Punjab also small problems have started off. In Sindhu province also has started off. So therefore they have problems all over. Now they are trying to fuel fire in Bangladesh as well, supporting the Jamaati Islam, and also trying to pose a potential threat against India from the eastern flank of India. Back to you, please.
Thank you very much. With that, I would like to thank retired Major General Siddharth Karji for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on to Bangladesh, Bangladesh's interim government chief Muhammad Yunus has stated that the authorities have so far arrested 7 people related to the case of mob lynching of the Hindu youth Deepu Chandra. Sharing a brief post on X, he has added that the Rapid Action Battalion forces are conducting operations at various locations after the incident. Deepu Chandra was reportedly beaten to death by an angry mob, and later his naked body was set on fire on Thursday night in the Meeman Singh district of Bangladesh following allegations of blasphemy. Deepu Chandra was a 27-year-old Hindu youth who worked at a local garment factory and lived in Dubalia Para area as a tenant. According to local sources, Bangladeshi Bengali media outlet Barta Bazaar has reported that Deepu Chandra was accused of making derogatory comments about Islam during an event at the garment factory. The allegations spread rapidly within the factory and surrounding areas, sparking tension. Eyewitnesses have said that the violent crowd took his body to the Square Master Barry bus stand area, where he was tied to a tree with a rope and then beaten brutally. He was later set ablaze while throngs of people shouted slogans in the distance. Other sources reported that his lifeless body was then moved to the Dhaka-Mymensingh highway and set on fire a second time, which disrupted traffic and caused panic among local residents. Now, for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's an international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. Looking at this unfortunate event from Bangladesh, once again, divisions loom in this region. And how do you think, what needs to be done to protect minority amid ongoing escalation and also instability, and to make sure Bangladesh has elections in February?
The question is very simple, but it's a complex situation.
Thank you.
My heart bleeds when I see such kind of optics, not optics,
Yes.
such kind of pictures. Such
Yes.
visuals are very disturbing.
100%.
And there are no quick answers, because this is the travesty of justice in the world order today. The geopolitical churn is actually becoming more and more complex with such kind of live challenges day by day. And when a thing like this takes place, a couple of issues flick through my mind. It's an act of provocation to India. Now, India has to take a call, like it took a call in Operation Sindoor. It thought through and came to a conclusion to go in for a standoff attack against Pakistan, and that too against the terrorist camps and the logistics supporting the terrorist camps. And so they have so many, I think 21 or 26 of them, but out of that, India selected only 9 of them and hit the target. So similarly, something like that has to be thought through, and whether it is going to be a punitive kinetic or non-kinetic, because by now India has already exhausted, to my understanding, all the options of non-kinetic passive measures, to say diplomacy and coercion. Only thing which is pending to be yet to be exercised are the leverages. When we talk about the leverages, India has an option. There are 54 levers between India and Bangladesh. They are flowing into Bangladesh. India has an option, including Brahmaputra, to actually leverage. I don't say weaponize the flow of water, but leverage the flow of water into Bangladesh, because if you try and take a benefit out of this, cost-benefit analysis will always give you better dividend. Second is the power supply. Bangladesh is dependent on India, and the transit system connecting Nepal and Bangladesh through India, as also Bhutan to an extent with Bangladesh through India. So such like connectivity also can be controlled, and large volume or quantum of power is being supplied by India. That also can be leveraged. And third is the transit. You see, India is the largest trading partner, one of the largest trading partners of Bangladesh, and we also supply cotton for the textile industry. Almost 35 to 37% of cotton is provided by India. So these are the few of the leverages that come to my mind, and people who come for medical treatment, there are far and few who go to places like Singapore. The majority of the patients, they come to India for medical treatment, to Siliguri corridor, to West Bengal. So these can be identified by carrying out a detailed analysis, and we could take kind of apply them to the advantage of India and try and choke them wherever possible. And last but not the least, you see, if military is an option, I would suggest to India that to a common man looks to be very simple, and therefore that should be resorted to as a last option. So before the last resort, I have another thought that coming to my mind. Has India done enough to publicize these kind of visuals which are being screened today during our show while you and me are talking?
Yes.
Have we got the United Nations? Have we presented these facts and figures on a dossier?
Yes.
Have we gone to the other countries and told the foreign media this is what is happening? The information warfare has to be structured, it has to be calibrated to achieve a desired objective, and if that is not happening, then perhaps India has to do much more. Somebody suggested yesterday in one of the panel discussion, in international panel, that Hindus should be allowed to come back to India. Well, there are 1.13 crores of Hindus in Bangladesh. Does India have the capacity and the stamina to take care of the Hindus? Today Hindus will come in, tomorrow Rohingyas will come in. How many people are you going to accommodate? And
Yes.
what is the role of these Hindus inside the Bangladesh? Do they have to suffer these kind of things and keep running away? When they come to India, maybe they will also be lynched in the similar manner. Who knows? So they must learn how to survive. But I would say that there are lessons to be learned from Putin, Russia and Ukraine and Crimea. Parallels can be drawn in 21st century. If the security of the nation is threatened, if Siliguri corridor is being threatened, there is no harm for India in drawing the red lines and keeping its gunpowder dry to take drastic and serious measure. But for that, we must dominate this escalatory ladder and have a clear entry point and exit point, and which should be it should be based on denial of attack punishment that I am talking of, not deterrence of punishment, not deterrence of deniability. When I say deterrence of punishment, we'll tell Bangladesh that we are coming here, we are doing this, please stop this. Tomorrow is the last day. If you don't stop this, then don't blame us. Because our Hindus, our own brothers and sisters, are being lynched and burned like this in open for broad daylight in the national highway itself. It is not acceptable for a country like India. India has come a long way. We have spent 78 years of sovereign and independent status. I think it's about time India has to take a kind of a revised, objective approach to such kind of mayhem being carried out against the Hindus, minorities, inside Bangladesh. Back to you, Asuna.
100%. Very powerful message indeed. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to thank Major General Sudakarji for joining us and sharing that powerful message with us on NewsX World. Now we move on to Asia. To Taiwan, Taiwan's president has visited victims of deadly stabbing attack in Taipei. 3 civilians have died in the knife rampage in a busy shopping district. The attacker later passed away during a police chase, taking the death toll to 4. President Lai Ching-te went to a hospital to meet the injured and families of those killed. Police say the suspect acted alone and had a criminal record and outstanding warrants. Authorities are now probing his background and motive. Lai has ordered a full investigation as Taiwan reels from a rare case of violent crime. Meanwhile, here's what an eyewitness of the attack has shared.
其实我当下没有什么感觉，就是中山站发生了伤人的事件。可是我一到现场，看到有人真的坐在那里，然后正在进行伤口的包扎，那甚至还有其他的伤患从里面被抬出来的时候，我那时候才觉得真的蛮可怕的。然后，而且这个情况一定非常严重，一定不止几个人受伤而已。为什么没有第一时间掌握到嫌犯的行踪？那导致他后来还有在台北车站 释放烟雾弹，然后又跑到中山站去随机伤人的事件，所以我觉得警方的螺丝其实也要再拴紧一点啦。那其实如果是以一般民众的想法的话，当然会觉得非常的有点恐慌啦。毕竟如果是自己的家人，因为我家。
Now we move on to our next news. Google is warning some employees on U.S. visas to avoid international travel amid growing visa delays. An internal email sent by the company's immigration law firm says staff who need a visa stamp to re-enter the U.S. should not leave the country. The warning cites lengthy processing times at embassies, with some appointments delayed by up to a year. The move comes as the Trump administration steps up vetting of H-1B visas and imposes a new $100,000 fee for applications. The H-1B program is widely used by the U.S. tech sector. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.